Have you noticed how many millionaires there are all around you? There's a good chance you haven't, because many millionaires don't appear wealthy at all. They may even pretend to be broke. As a result, they don't dress in expensive designer clothes and shoes, or drive fancy cars. Instead, they look just like you and I do. You'd be surprised to see how millionaires actually spend their money, and what proportion of their income is allotted to expenses that both you and I have. In fact, most people would really benefit from adopting many of these spending habits I'm about to share, so make sure to watch until the end so you don't miss even one. Thomas Corley, the author of Rich Habits, studied millionaires for over a 5-year period. He sampled over 200 millionaires and examined their quirkier personality traits and financial habits. All of the millionaires had net liquid assets of at least $3.2 million, which included cash, bank deposits, and investments that can quickly be converted into cash, like shares of stock. They also had an annual gross income of at least $160,000 through their respective businesses. Next, there is a virtuoso who is among the best at what they do and is paid more for their knowledge and expertise. They work for a large company and devote all of their time and energy to advancing their corporate career until they find themselves in an executive position with a very high salary. For the second category of millionaires, formal education is typically required, including advanced degrees, frequently in law or medicine. The next group is the dreamer or entrepreneur, who is pursuing a dream such as opening their own business or becoming an author, musician, or actor. Dreamers are dedicated to their work and are rewarded financially for their efforts. Being an entrepreneur distinguishes them from employees in that they have greater income potential. Finally, there is the saver investor, who doesn't care what their day job is or how high or low it is. To become a saver investor millionaire, there are no requirements beyond having investments with a track record of growth. Anyone can get on the right track right away and start their journey to becoming wealthy, regardless of whether they have a high school diploma or come from a poor background. My parents are a great example of this. They never made more than $80,000 a year between the two of them and only have one college degree. However, where they lacked in income, they made up for in solid savings, practices, and patience now. After working for 40 years, saving and investing, they have a few $1,000,000 to enjoy in retirement, while never having had to overextend themselves during a massive income in the process. Corley found that in order to become a millionaire by being part of the saver investor group, you should aim to keep your expenses at 80 or below your take-home pay. He found that safer investors aimed to save at least 20% or more of their income, and were religiously investing that money by implementing a frugal mentality and making it a priority to invest. The process of becoming a millionaire is quite simple, and it is the most common way people in quarterly study got there. So how do these savers and investors categorize their expenses to remain frugal and avoid reckless spending? Good question. So let's dive into how they allocated their monthly income in order to reach millionaire status, and how you can do the same. First is housing. The largest chunk of everyone's budget is their housing expense. This could be because the individuals often buy too much house for their income, or the rent they take on is simply too expensive. Plus, they are unwilling to live with roommates or make other sacrifices. Consequently, they end up spending most of their paycheck on keeping a roof over their head. The saver investor millionaires don't go wild when it comes to this expense, so keep your housing costs at 25% or less of your monthly take-home pay. When you're content with a small home or apartment, it can greatly reduce not only your rental mortgage, but utilities and other costs that go along with a larger space. These individuals are also willing to sacrifice when it comes to location. Instead of insisting that they live in a prime spot in the city, they know the importance of frugality when it comes to housing, and they know that settling for something not quite as desirable will pay off overspending in this category, makes it nearly impossible to save and invest aggressively. And if you agree, let me know by hitting that like button below. However, I know what you're thinking. Right now, homes and rent are incredibly expensive. There's no way it could only take up 5% of my budget. And this is a valid concern in the last few years. The cost of housing has skyrocketed, whether you bought or rent. So here's what I'll say. If you are modest in the accommodations you assume, and end up spending 30% of your income, that's okay. Is that ideal for growing your wealth? No. But keep in mind that Tom Crowley's study was done quite a few years ago, and times have certainly changed. However, the core principle remains. The takeaway is that the amount millionaires spend in respect to their living accommodations is not based on social norms or the desire to show off. So as such, you should adopt that same ideology too, especially if you're on the saver investor path. Next, we have food and home items. Millionaires just like us need to eat and wash their clothes, so part of their monthly incomes will be allocated toward these things. However, just 15% or less of their net pay. They aren't ordering in every night, going out to expensive restaurants weekly, but are instead also being mindful as to how much they're spending in this area. This can include managing how much food you can waste, which most people don't realize can cost them upwards of $100 a month, when we have cars. Millionaires in Tom Corley's study spent just 5% or less their net pay. On transportation now, this might shock you, as transportation is the second largest expense for the average family coming in, just behind housing. However, the Saver Investor Millionaire study had spent less than 5% of their take-home pay on transportation. This includes monthly car payments, insurance, gas, toll, registration fees, repairs, and maintenance. Even though millionaires occasionally have expensive cars, it doesn't mean they're spending a large chunk of their income on them. Now, I know what you're probably wondering. How in the hell could you get down to a 5% car expense? And here are a few ways you can work towards this amount. First, you need to ditch your car payment. Saving up money to buy a new or used car eliminates a major cash expenditure every month. Second, take the bus where you can, such as when you commute to work. Finally, be a responsible driver. The better you treat your car, the less repairs you will need, and you can keep your car for 10 or more years. You'll definitely be speeding up to your path of wealth. Next, here's clothing. We all like to look good, but millionaires in Corley's study did not break the bank to do so. They just spent 5% or less of their after-tax income when it comes to their wardrobe. So despite what the media will have you believe, millionaires don't spend wildly on designer brands and jewelry. It's quite the opposite. Actually, while there are certainly extremely wealthy individuals who buy luxury brands and have extensive clothing collections, most millionaires wear generic clothing brands. This is one of the reasons why they blend so well into the overall population. They do so because, as you know, it's better to be rich and not just look rich. Moving on. We have vacations. We all love time away from work, and with the millionaires in this study, it was found that enjoying these precious moments of life doesn't have to break the bank. Millionaires spend 5% or less of their after-tax income on vacation, and this is quite a stark difference from the middle-class counterparts. It's extremely common for a middle-class family to spend a relative fortune on an annual family vacation, whether it's a trip to Disney during school break or a tropical cruise. These are extremely expensive for the average household. For instance, it's not uncommon for family trips to Disney World to cost $10,000 or more for a family of 4. And if your household income is just $100,000, that's 10% gone in a flash. Saver Investor Millionaires is likely the type of millionaire you'll become. Spend reasonable amounts of their net pay on vacation. They don't deprive themselves of travel and leisure, but they take modest, inexpensive vacations. They don't cost too much that they have no money left over from future travel and other everyday expenses. Speaking of things that don't cost too much, it costs nothing to subscribe to this channel, so if you haven't already, go ahead and do that now. I really appreciate it. Then we have entertainment, an expense that can vary greatly from person to person. For the millionaire in the study, entertainment consumed 10% or less of their after-tax income, and that money went toward things like going out to bars and restaurants, takeout, movies, music, books, and streaming services. These expenses are part of a balanced lifestyle, but should be enjoyed in moderation, as adding 1 or 2 extra nights out a month can dramatically impact how much you can save and invest. Now, at the start of the video, I told you that those who become saver investor millionaires tend to save at least 20% of their incomes. And given that this is a path you're likely going to take yourself, let's go over how you can do the same. Let's say you earn a modest income of $50,000 per year. Saving 20% of your take-home pay would end up being around $750 per month. By using strategies to reduce typically larger expenses and working on increasing your income at the same time, getting to a 20% savings rate is definitely doable for starters. So you want to look at how much you're spending on costs like housing and transportation. Simply downsizing your accommodations can easily save you hundreds of dollars a month in rent or mortgage payments. Alternatively, if you don't want to move, which is totally understandable, you can find ways to use your space to make you money. For instance, as a homeowner, you can rent out a space in your house. As a tenant, you can offer to contribute to improvements such as repairs on the home, if you have the skills to do so, or maintaining the property by mowing the lawn and shoveling the snow. These small locks can often be used to negotiate lower rent payments and help you achieve the 20% savings rate you desire. Alternatively, you can get serious about modifying your car expenses. The average person spends $1,000 a month in transportation alone, which is a lot of money. If you're only earning a modest income, then it makes sense to swap out some driving for taking the bus, as most bus passes cost only around $100 a month. Then, when some of these larger expenses are taken care of, assess how far away you are from saving 20% of your income. You may only need to find another $100 worth of savings, which you can steal from your entertainment budget, or access to working overtime at your job. I know saving 20% of your income is not easy, but as you know, nothing good comes without sacrifice. Hey, it looks like YouTube thinks this next video is the one that will change your financial life forever. Give it a watch, and let's see if they're right.